Yeah, hi everyone. So in this video, we will see about Select and Spark. So Spark mainly has Select two kinds of APIs. So one is Select and selectexpr. So once we have the data frame loaded through reading a table or through reading a normal files, we have the Select API to manipulate the data. So this is one of the key API. So unlike other videos or other tutorials, in this one I would like to show you how does select works basically. So what we can do is generally, right, we can go to the source API documentation. So if you see here, I have given the link for source API of select. So what they are saying is it basically takes column name as a list. Basically, star means any number of arguments it can take, and a column or name means it can take either a column name or a string. So let us see how it works. So as explored in the API, right below are the signatures, right? So these signatures can be found here. So if you click on source, so you will see the select has three kinds of signature. So one is it accepts a column name, and another one is it accepts star of column name, meaning it can have a number of columns, or it can also get an argument, right, with a list of columns. Basically we did also accept a list, right? So now going back to this signature, let us explain or break it down one by one, right? So in this, right, column name, what does this mean, right? Actually, column name is again a type. So if we go and check the source of column name, so if you see here, this is the typing for Spark. So if we go and check the column name here, search for column name. Yeah, so if you see column or name, this basically it is nothing but it can take anything which can have a string value or of type column. Say for example, if you see here for this demo video, I have created a dummy data frame. So we have created a data frame which has just two columns, right? So in this one, we are making the imports of necessary Python function, which will be used later, right? So first option is, right, we can use anything which can return column, right? So why does this f dot column, or what does this mean, right? So if I go and show you what does this mean, to quickly check what does this mean is to use the help function in Python. So Python comes with help. So where if we give a help of this function, so if you see here, right, it returns the column, right, which is what we are expecting. So df dot select column of name, right? So name is nothing but this name. We have two columns, right, age and name. So we can use f dot column to select the data frame, or we can use the name, right? Because the star columns expression means it can take any number of arguments. For example, here we have given two arguments, right? So name is one argument and then age is another one. And if you run this one, right, you will get to see the both the things getting displayed, right? Now the other form of giving this is, since Python is not strictly type, you can also mix and match the things. Say for example, I can use expr as well. If you see here, right, if you note, there is one more thing which we have introduced here. So what does this fdex expr give, right? If you go and check the help of this, so this fduct expr, right? It is again nothing but it will give you back a returns a column, right? So since our select API can also accept column. So if you see here, right, like we can now see that you are selected basically the API using column type, right? Or you can select also using the string type, right? And additionally we have this expr where we can give any expression, right? So in this case I have given a simple expression which is nothing but a hard-coded variable or hard-coded value, right? Column selected as type, right? So this is the third one, and the final one is like list, right? So it can expect or it can accept a list. So if you see here, so that is the third signature. So if you see the signature which has been given in the top, the third one, right? So it can accept an underscore columns variable, which is nothing but it can either be a list of columns or list of string, right? So if you go and check in the bottom, so df.select, it is accepting a list of, if you see, right, like in Python, lists are denoted by square bracket. So we can also use this to select, right? And then finally we can also use the select of string columns, right? And since Python is not statically or strictly typed, if you watch here carefully, I have two things which are string, but the third one is actually an expression which returns back a column, right? So we can mix and match the things as well, right? And it should also work, right? And the second set of API is selectexpr, right? So why do we need a expr, right? So assume we need to do some transformations, right, like a SQL transformations, like case when, right, like a case statement, or we need to do a lower, right? So generally, typically, right, what you can do is you can use the expr function as shown above, right? And this star is a special syntax. The star means it will select all the columns there, so it is like a SQL star. So if I run this one, you will basically get, see the star, which is age and name, and then I have given a case statement. So whenever age is less than 18, it is saying, and above 18, it is an adult, right? And we are using this lower. So what does this lower do is it will basically lower your name. So Alice has been lowered to this lower case of Alice, right? So but this is little bit, right, time consuming, meaning if you have a lot of columns, right, and then you have to add a lot of logics, putting an expr every time will be little difficult, right? Or your syntax will become little ugly. So that is where we can leverage the power of Python, right? So since this basically accepts a list, we can use a list comprehension. A list comprehension is nothing but it will take an input list, and we can apply a function. For example, in our case, expr is nothing but a function, right? So it is just a function in our case. So what we are trying to do is, so in this case, if you see, right, we have an input list 1 2 3, and we are basically having a function multiplier. What it will do is it will take the input number, so 1 into 2 2, like that it is going to do a multiplication, right? So 1 2 3 get multiplied into 2 4 6. So assume the same. What we want to do is, say we have to do the like lot of transformations, right, in our day to day activities. So what we can do is we can keep this as a list, right? And what we can do is we can run through like this, right? Like if you see, right, for each of the value, this expr is called, and this will be a shortcut, or this is the way. Once you know, right, like since it accepts a list, you can do whatever you can do with list comprehension, right? So this is the use of select expr, right? But now one more thing is, right, say if you feel like, right, like adding an expr every time, right, again it needs a, so even though it is better than what we did earlier, this is again a one more step, right? Like we have to add a function or a thing for this, right? So that is where, right, Spark comes with this select expr API. So here what it will do is it will basically get a list of expressions. So if you see here, right, I added all the expressions, and then I can just do a display. So I don't need any more, right, any kind of alternate thing, right? So this is the use of select expr. And as you do the select, I think we have learned two three things, right? Number one is select, and then how to add a transformations, and how to simplify the transformation logic with our SQL expressions with select expr. And finally, what we might need to do is we might need to like add some constant values, right? Say for example, I want to have an audit timestamp, right? So for audit timestamp, so for this, right, we have the lit, right? So if you see the source code of lit, again it returns back a column, right? So this column is what our Spark or select API will also basically needs, right? So what we can do is we can use this one. And if you see here, right, like we have added a certain constant column, say f dot lit of 1. So this, since it is a number, it is going to give you an integer or a begin type. So if you see the data types, right, so for checking the data type of our data frame, we can use df dot d types. So this will basically give you the data type, right? So since we have, let me assign this to a variable. So df2 equal to df dot, right, let me remove the display and display of df. So if you see here, we have used df dot like lit function along with the select, right, for you to add the constant values, right. And since lit is of type any, so it is truly meaning you can add any data type. Say for example, to show you the versatility of lit, I have brought the timestamp, right. So basically we are trying to add a date time field. If you see here, right, 2019, so this is the time, right. And if you see the df2, you will see here it is also added, right. So the common use case of doing like this is, say you want to load some 10 tables and then you want to ensure that all the tables are basically filtered or loaded with the same timestamp, right. So you can use this just a time, like create a variable and then directly fit it here rather than using the current timestamp function, right. And that's all on the select. So the key takeaways are, like we have explored the select API and then the select expr, and we have seen the signature of it, or we have seen basically how to decode the API. So for decoding the API, you have to go to the source documentation, and here you can see the column or column name. So this basically has a generic API, and you can click on this source. So this will give you what are the various signatures available. So the same signature from here has been copied here, and we understood star columns means it can take any number of columns, and we have a overloaded select. That means the another form of select where we can also have a list of column or list of string. And we have also seen what are some of the common types which will return a column. For example, f.expr and then f.lit and f dot call. These are some of the functions which will return the list. And finally, we have seen how to use select expr and how to use our list comprehension, right, the python power to dynamically add your expressions. So this will be pretty much helpful when you are trying to add some say we have a config driven development, right, where we have to store this transformation in a config file, and for you to dynamically generate your data or load your data, we can use this technique of list comprehension, and then we can add the additional columns, right. And we can also simplify this furthermore by using the select expr, right. And finally, constant columns, right, this will be useful especially when you want to add a constant value, or say you want to add something like a audit timestamp, right, say ingested time, right. So that's all for today's video, and you can add comments and share and subscribe if you like this video, right. And I will try to respond to the comments as soon as possible. And if you like this video, do subscribe to this channel, and then let me know what is that which I can next have a tutorial on, right. And this series will have other videos on filter and group by as well. You can check out in the video description for the other videos. Thanks, have a great day.